The year is 2002, and the last person you would ever want to see in a dark parking garage late at night would go on to make his WWE debut. This man would start off as the muscle for Devon Dudley, Reverend Devon to be exact.
Because you see, brothers and sisters, Reverend Devon is a righteous man. Ha! Oh!
Now, the gimmick itself wasn't all that special and was rather short-lived, but it achieved exactly what it needed to do, which was introducing us to Dave Bautista. Of course, during his time in the WWE, he would only go by Bautista, and if you don't already know, he became a pretty huge deal during his multiple-year run in the company. He would make huge strides winning multiple championships, main eventing WrestleMania, being a part of one of the company's biggest factions in Evolution, and feuding with some of the biggest names in wrestling. I mean, just think of any accolade you can achieve in a wrestling company, and Bautista has probably done it multiple times. Now, as for the reason why Bautista got as popular as he did, the answer is quite simple. There are huge dudes that come in and out of WWE all the time. You'll have guys that are jacked from the toes all the way to the pores on their heads that just can't seem to stick around long enough to even remember their names. That's because the physique is only half of the package that makes a wrestler great. Yes, most of the time WWE is going to push the big dudes anyways, but in order to stick around for the long run, you have to have some genuine stage presence and charisma to connect with audiences watching you. Some good examples being wrestlers like Jeff Hardy or Rey Mysterio. Not the biggest guys you've ever seen, but don't be mistaken. These are some of the best wrestlers to walk through WWE's doors, and not just because they were, that's just how entertainment works. So you can imagine WWE's excitement when they found a guy that could capture the best of both worlds, being physically impressive and having memorable character work with his persona, the Animal. Now, I just gave you a quick crash course on Dave Bautista in the WWE. You might be asking, well, why, Francisco? Why did you do that? Well, because that is a thing of the past now. There might be some that don't remember Bautista's involvement in the WWE or just didn't watch wrestling at all, but I did. I remember all of it. His iconic match at WrestleMania 23 with The Undertaker, his feud with Triple H, his heel turn on Rey Mysterio. It's all still where he started acting, because even though he was a huge star, it can sometimes work against you when you're trying to transition to something else like Hollywood. Either people can't take you seriously or you're stuck in a typecast where it feels like their previous career will haunt them forever. Well, not only did Dave Bautista break through that typecast, but he did it in one of the most impressive ways I have ever seen, and he really exemplifies what makes a good actor. So the question is, how did he manage to pull it off? Well, it wasn't easy at first. Many people remember him as Drax right off the bat, and that wasn't the case. It was the first time he got some notable attention, but he actually started off in minor roles like a lot of other WWE superstars did in projects like Wrong Side of Town, House of the Rising Sun, The Scorpion King 3. I'm not expecting you to know any of these movies, they're just some of the credits that I pulled off his IMDb, but I have watched Wrong Side of Town many years ago, and yeah. It's rightfully buried in his profile, but it's also a far cry from the amazing work he would go on to deliver years later. Bautista officially quit WWE in 2010, which allowed him to shift more focus on a career in Hollywood. He went on to state that he wound up pretty broke soon after and had to resort to a couple of terrible movies for the pay, but always making sure that he kept it to a minimum. It wasn't until he obviously landed the role of Drax that his acting career finally started to see some positive luck. The MCU was arguably in its prime during that time, and James Gunn's Guardians movies were clearly the best out of the whole thing. That's just my opinion. So clearly Bautista already landed a sure thing that he could have milked for a long time, but he didn't. He went out to look for other opportunities and started building a solid resume with supporting roles in Riddick, Man with the Iron Fists, Spectre. But the role that was a real game changer, and I mean really helped shift his career from being seen as just Bautista the wrestler or Drax from the MCU, was Sapper in Blade Runner 2049.
I was careful not to drag in any dirt.
I don't mind the dirt. I do mind unannounced visits.
If If you've gotten the pleasure to see this amazing sci-fi epic from Denis Villeneuve, then you'll know that this movie was the real deal. It was a full-fledged blockbuster that included big names like Ryan Gosling, Harrison Ford, Jared Leto, and Ana de Armas, who was also a rising star at that time. This was a huge production where Dave finally had an opportunity to prove himself, and he certainly did. Although Dave didn't have a big role in the movie itself, he was still tasked with an important job, opening the entire movie alongside Ryan Gosling. The scene itself goes by pretty quick, but in that short span, Dave was able to showcase a more serious performance that didn't rely too much on his physical stature. Plus, the scene establishes the entire tone for the rest of the movie, which I think is very important. Essentially, this small role showed an even bigger potential for Dave's career because, yeah, he's a big guy, but apparently when you have good material, you can actually utilize him better. Who would have thought? And by the grace of God, Dave's career has been flourishing ever since. Every role becoming slightly bigger and better until he's eventually #1 on the call sheet. You love to see it. Yes, he's been able to shine bright now that he's collaborated with the likes of Rian Johnson, M. Night Shyamalan, and worked again with Denis for the second time in his adaptation of Dune. With each role he gets, you can definitely see great signs of improvement. I personally felt incredibly proud when I saw Knock at the Cabin. Even though it wasn't my favorite thing ever, Dave really held his own and commanded that movie with the right amount of intensity and tenderness. An amazing performance that made you see no one else but Leonard, and seeing all those years of hard work finally paying off. See, to me, Dave's career isn't just built on being a talented actor, but someone who is learning how to carefully navigate the typecast. I really love this quote that he gave during a GQ interview. "I never wanted to be the next Rock, I just wanted to be a good fucking actor. A respected actor." Now, while I don't think this was a dig at The Rock in any way, you can still draw up a very sharp contrast in the work Dave's done compared to the likes of The Rock or John Cena. They all seemingly do have a charisma that audiences are able to attach to, but it seems that Dave is the only one actively seeking to surprise audiences a bit. He takes the chances to go out of his comfort zone and chase roles that feel purposeful in the growth of his career. One big moment that really changed the way I saw him was when he turned down working with James Gunn again to do Army of the Dead. Suicide Squad was a far more enjoyable experience to me than Army of the Dead, but that's not the point. Where Dave could have just as easily stayed working with James Gunn on another comic book movie, he instead decided to explore new opportunities and collaborate with a new director in Zack Snyder and actually get to lead the movie. Also, not forget to mention that it helped create a positive relationship between him and Netflix, so yeah, it turned out to be much more beneficial for him at the end of the day. These are the kinds of choices why I feel Dave Bautista not only stands above some of his old peers, but just actors in general. He seems to really care about the art form of cinema and pursue projects that he's passionate about. If you take a look at his filmography today, then you'll see a wide variety of high quality work that he's put out, and that's really impressive to say considering he's only been active for around 10 years. He does a little bit of everything, which is exciting to see. His range can go from enjoyable comedy to Denis blockbuster to even passionate stories by Hayao Miyazaki. I feel like actors have been missing this kind of sauce for a while, so it's very impressive to see one of my favorite former wrestlers leading this kind of rhetoric and being in demand in Hollywood. I just feel an immense amount of joy for the guy, and I wanted to take a moment to really give him his flowers. Even though he's already got some reputable films under his belt, it still feels like he's barely gotten started, so if he ends up winning an Academy Award or something down the line, just know that he's earned that thing. Thank you.
I know, yeah.
Is
This
that
is
how
the
it
way I
works?
wanted to go. This is like a dream for me. This is why it's so perfect. It's such a romantic way. Like, and wrestlers don't get to choose the way they go out.
Yeah.
I did. I went out on my own terms, the way I wanted, with the guy I wanted to go out with.
Yeah.
And I will never tarnish that. It's not that I don't miss it.
Yeah.
I miss the crowd. I miss the energy of the crowd. I dream about walking out and hearing my entrance music. But I know if I do that, I will just tarnish my storybook ending, and I'm just not willing to
Have
do
you been
it.
really close to going back or being very tempted?
Ooh, good question.
It's it's always temptation because I miss it, and every time I hear my music, I just I want that feeling again. It's like a drug. It's And
I want to
just,
know
yeah.
what your music is.
yeah, it's great.
Oh,
What
it's
is it?
good.
It's great.